the cost of prescription medications have just gone up higher and higher and higher. And nowadays, we hear about a lot of backlash against these entities called pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, that are like the middleman between the insurance companies, the clients, the pharmacies, and so forth, and they print a lot of money. And so today, I wanted to talk about 5 ways that people can save money on prescriptions that's outside of going to a pharmacy with your insurance. It's actually really interesting. I was talking to another doctor who also wholesales his own prescriptions. I mean, he buys them from the manufacturer and he sells them to his patients. And he does like a 10% markup. It's kind of like the cost plus model, or some of the models that other pharmacies are starting to do. But I couldn't believe how cheap these medications were. Like amlodipine or common statin, or amlodipine for blood pressure, simvastatin for cholesterol and so forth. Some of these medications, he's getting them at a penny a pill, a penny to 2 pennies a pill. So if you need to take 1 a day, you're taking 365 a year. That's $3.65. That's the cost. And we're saying, and people are going to Walmart saying the $4 list is a bargain, right? Where it's $4 a month. The markup on the $4 list is like, how many multiples of that? So they're getting it at 30 cents and they're selling to you for $4. That's almost like getting coffee at Starbucks. So that's what's happening, and most people aren't realizing how cheap the cost of healthcare can be, especially on the prescription side of things. So a couple of ways you can save money on prescriptions. 1, look for coupons. Sometimes coupons are cheaper. Buying a prescription cash using coupons like GoodRx or some of the other coupon programs out there, it's cheaper than using your insurance, negotiated rates for prescriptions. So that's one way, using coupons. Always check coupons. You can check them online and compare cash price versus. And sometimes if your pharmacy is good and they're looking out for you, a lot of these independent pharmacies, the pharmacists will actually know what the top coupons are for their pharmacy, so they may have their own discount program available for you. So that's one way to do it, is always look at coupons, especially for generics. I always look at coupons. Second is, think about getting your prescriptions overseas. It is legal. There's a self-importation rule where if you're importing your prescriptions for personal use, you can buy them overseas. There's a lot of these overseas pharmacies. Interestingly, I took a trip up to Canada to see what the process was like, and a lot of Americans go up to Canada. They get a Canadian doctor to prescribe them drugs. They can fill them there, bring it back. A lot of these Canadian mail order pharmacies, they're based out of Canada, but they're sourcing their medications from other parts of the world, because to actually buy drugs from Canada, you need a Canadian prescription. But a lot of these pharmacies are shipping them from Africa, they're shipping them from India and Turkey and all these other manufacturers. They're reliable medications, but just because you're looking at a Canadian mail order pharmacy, you're not necessarily getting your drugs from Canada, but you're getting them from other sources, which can oftentimes be a fraction of the cost. A lot of times we're seeing people getting their brand name medications for 20-30% of the cost of retail here in the US, and oftentimes less than what they can get their prescription for via copay at a major pharmacy. So that's another way to do it, especially for brand name medications, is looking at getting things from overseas. And overall, having seen our clients over the last 12 years practice this, people have good responses, have gotten good experiences from purchasing overseas. And then another way is to look at government assistance programs. There are tons of assistance programs out there from the state and federal government. Social Security has something called Extra Help. So if you have low income, then you may qualify for pharmaceutical assistance. And then also states will, I know that there's all these issues with Medicaid and cutbacks and so forth, but Medicaid, there are state pharmaceutical assistance programs for the elderly available for folks that have high drug costs. So that's something to look to. A lot of times talking to your senior center or calling Social Security will get you access to more information on these programs, or you can look it up online. And then Another way to lower costs on prescriptions is through a national pharmaceutical assistance program from the manufacturer. There are a lot of these grants available where sometimes you have to apply for them. Sometimes there are a manufacturer coupon where you can significantly reduce the cost of your medication. So if you have a brand name medication, especially, check with the manufacturer to see if there's any programs available to reduce those costs. And sometimes they're income dependent, but we've seen folks that have, maybe multi six figures that still get assistance if there's money left. So just because you have higher than average income doesn't mean that you're going to be precluded from these programs. And then the last one is actually one that's, I feel like this is out of the box, but people should do it a lot more often, is to check in with your physician to see if they can do a med review with you, work with your pharmacist, do a med review. We've seen so many cases where we have clients that have 15, 20 medications. They go to a new primary care doctor that spends an hour with them. A lot of times these direct primary care doctors, concierge doctors, they're not very expensive. Sometimes they're $80, $100 a month on average. They can sit down with you and they'll spend the time and say, look, you may not need this with some lifestyle modifications. Maybe we can get you off these medications. And a lot of times we see people go from 15, 20 medications down to 2 or 3 medications. And a lot of times those doctors will also have access to a lot of these prescription wholesale programs where they can get their drugs cheaper than the pharmacy, a penny, 2 pennies per pill. This other doctor that I was talking to, he was wholesaling medications to his patients. So he was a year worth of blood pressure medication, a year worth of statins. He's charging them $5 to $10, not per month, but per year for these medications. So a lot of savings that make up the cost of membership. So we're going to see a lot more of these things coming down the pipeline, but those are a couple of things that you can do, 5 things you can do to really reduce the cost of your medications without having to go through traditional insurance.